G'day, I'm Daniel here from Torque Performance Developments. I'm one of the business owners and the tuner for the company. Today we've just finished a Volvo XC60 R design for a customer. We've managed to get probably another 52 newton meters extra in torque, primarily because we've decided to tune it off the bottom. Peak power, only around about 10 kilowatts just on top of factory. However, that's just right at the top, so if we actually look at where the best gains were, we're still thinking around about 30, well, still looking at about 30 kilowatts, probably at the best power, which is probably about 4,500 RPM. But primarily, this is a street car, so we've tuned it to have good torque off the bottom and more usable power in the rev range between, say, 1,500 to about 4.5, instead of focusing more on peak. So, generally, you have to sacrifice one or the other when you're tuning cars. Cool.
And Dan, how easy are these cars to tune?
The T6, with the software that's available, it is easy because it is a Bosch ECU, so the architecture is very similar to other vehicles such as your Volkswagens and whatnot, which we probably do more of. The software in the XC60, because it's not actually the R designs actually run a different ECU to the normal T6s. So normally we would be able to get the file out just by reading an OBD2 port, but with this particular vehicle we had to take the ECU out of the car and actually read it on the bench, which we have to run a whole bunch of different pins. I'll send a picture so you guys can kind of see what we have to do there. And then each time we have to write the car, we have to repeat the same process. So when I'm tuning a car, it's the same process with all cars. We get it on our dyno, we do a base run, and then we read the factory file off the vehicle, and then we use our software, which is, we use DimSwap, which is an Italian software, as well as using WinOLS, depending on the maps and what gives us the best maps. And all we do is we just take that and then we start modifying things like torque limits, boost limits, set the timing right, and actually just go through and actually get it nice based on what data logs. So every time we do a change, we data log and test on the dyno, and then we make some more changes based on what those data logs tell us to get an end result.
People worry about mapping your car. They're going to be saying things like it's going to put extra strain on the transmission and stuff's going to start breaking. What have you got to say about that?
Depends on how hard you push it. Most street cars, we're just doing a custom tune on factory internals. We're going to tune the car to be within what those factory parts can handle. When you start moving into further things like putting downpipes and stuff, that's really just taking bottlenecks out of it. But you've got to remember that most cars, they have torque limitations within not just the engine ECU, but also the transmission, the TCU, transmission control module. They have a torque limit in there, so even if you're trying to push the car harder, the TCU will back that off. Some cars like Volkswagens, we can extend the torque limits, but we generally look at what a transmission can handle before we exceed those. Same things when we're doing cars with clutches, we'll know what the clutch can handle from factory, and if we outgrade the clutches. Normally, if we're tuning them and we're exceeding the power, we'll recommend to the customer if we think that something is going to be exceeded where the engine can't handle, and then we'll recommend those further. So if someone says, I want so much horsepower, we say, well, you need to change this, this, and this, before we can actually do it.
Okay, there'll be some people out there who then want to go further with these cars. Are they ideal to
With all turbo cars, it's pretty much the same formula. You have stage packages, which people talk about. We have our own thing, which we're releasing called S, RS, and RR packages, which is street, and race. It's going to be based on our design, on what we think each steps are. Stage packages has become a very odd thing because stage was generally one company's stage 2, which could be different to another company's stage 2. So just saying I've got a stage 2 package really means nothing these days. But general rule of thumb with a turbo vehicle, you have a custom tune or a tune off the shelf depending on what you're wanting. We only do custom here. Then we would do the next step, which would be like a downpipe, a high flow filter, maybe a diverter valve if it needs it, depending on the vehicle. Then your next step, which would be your RS, would add an intercooler for track, so because factory intercooler is heat soaked. There might be other supporting mods, and then you'd have like your race package would be an upgraded turbo, all the fuel supporting mods. Maybe we need a full exhaust system, maybe we need a full airbox. So it really depends on the car, and and we generally create a unique package for each vehicle.
Okay, great. Thanks so much, Dan.
Cool, no problem.